Hi everyone, and welcome back to this latest edition of the Human Factors Security Podcast with me, your host, Jenny Radcliffe. I am so delighted to welcome to today's show. I kind of had to gear myself up to invite you. Marcelle Lee, welcome to the show.
Oh my gosh, I'm so pleased to be here. Like we had this little conversation earlier, but the honor is mine, really.
So when you guys, see how accomplished Marcelle is, you'll see why I'm saying this, but we actually met in, oh my gosh, 2019.
Yeah,
Hacker
2019.
halted Atlanta. Speaking of heat, we were just talking about Marcelle here is got like her hair's wafting gently and kind of sophisticated in the. I'm sitting there in Britain like that. As soon as it gets a bit warm in England, we all fall to pieces. But you just look, relaxed and
Well,
glamorous
you're
as
not you're
usual.
not really properly prepared for it there, and half of my team at work is actually based in the UK, and I think there was like a heat wave last year, and everybody was just dying. They'd be in meetings and
No,
just
we can't deal
panting.
with it. And also, it's other things as well. It's things like it might be really warm in the morning, but then horrific in the afternoon. And
Yeah.
we can't. You can get 4 seasons in one day, so we can't deal with it. And it's a national pastime to talk about the weather anyway. Let's not get a Brit onto the weather. So, Marcel, for those who don't know you and what you do, can you just give us a little outline of what your job is and what it is that you focus on in security?
Sure, absolutely. So I have a few different roles. I'll start with my day job, as I like to call it. I'm a senior security researcher at MSSP called SecureWorks, based actually in Atlanta, like Hacker Halted, and I've been with them for almost 2 years now. I'm also the emerging threats lead, so my job is to kind of keep a finger on the pulse of
How
all the
exciting!
all the new
I want to
exciting
ask you all
cyber
about
things.
this. Yes.
And there's lots of new and exciting cyber things like every day, it feels like. So it's a bit exhausting at times, but I love it. And I'm also a professor at a couple of different universities here in the States. I teach
Just the
digital.
4 degrees and various.
I'm a little compulsive, what can I say? But we might have that in common. I don't know. But yeah, so I teach digital forensics. I'm currently teaching like basically a prep class for the CompTIA Pen Test Plus certification, which I got like last year, if it starts wise. And then I'm also pretty active in the community with regard to volunteer things. So I wear a hat for Women's Society of Cyber Jitsu, which is a diversity-centric group, as the name might imply, but not just for women, it's for anybody.
But that's, can I just say, just because I was going to get into that later, but now you've raised it, that's surely the point, because one of my pet hates is that they think they're just basically putting a white woman on a panel makes it diverse, and this is rubbish, right? I mean, that's not
Well,
diversity.
that's when you feel like a bit of a token, right?
Right.
So I'm always leery when somebody wants me to speak, and I can kind of tell it's just because I'm filling a spot, like I am the woman, and I'd much rather be asked to speak because of my experience or
Because of
technical
the 4 degrees, the professorships, the active involvement in the community, the
yes.
threat analysis.
All those things. But anyway, for Cyberjitsu, I am the chief of competition programming. I am a huge fan of cyber competitions, both because they're fun to do and they're also a great way to learn. So I've been in that role for a while, but I've been on the board and whatnot. So Cyberjitsu is near and dear to my heart. But there's also a lot of other volunteer things that I do. So
You must be
we'll
so
talk about
busy.
those. Yeah,
I mean,
pretty much.
I'm busy, but when I look at what you do, I'm like, you must be so busy. And yet, you have the photographs of you chilling out as well. I mean, I can hear Magnum in the background. Am I right?
Oh, well done. Yes,
Yeah.
Magnum.
Social engineer. I'm just trying to impress you because, I'm so glad you're on my show.
I
But
know
you
you'll be
also have
dropping
these.
nuggets everywhere,
But you have
probably.
these pictures of you kind of really chilling, and it seems like you've got a really good work-life balance as well. I'm just so envious. You're such a high achiever, Marcel. I'm glad you came on my show. let me I'm jealous though, because recently you actually managed to actually get to a real B-sides in
Yes.
person,
Yes.
actually hang out with people. So saw all your clips on, all your pictures on Twitter, and you were teaching too. I mean, how did
Yeah.
it feel to get back to that like community feel after all this time?
It felt amazing. And it's kind of funny because this was B-Sides Nova, which Nova is Northern Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
And so the very last live conference I went to was B-Sides Nova last year. And then, all hell broke loose with the pandemic. And so there was still plenty of stuff, but it was all virtual. So this was actually done as a hybrid. So Sophia, who runs the event, had rented out this ginormous Airbnb, and all like the staff was hanging out, or the volunteer staff was staying at this Airbnb. And then like when we did panels and stuff, people just came to the Airbnb and we were together. So we didn't actually have like participants there, but we were still with like our group of cyber peeps, as I like to call them.
That's
So
an awesome way of doing it. I must remember that for Liverpool, because
right, exactly. I mean, it was really fun, and really helpful logistically to kind of have everybody under one roof. I mean, it helps when you all like to hang out together and whatnot.
You look like you were having the most amazing time. Like everyone was seeing all the orange glasses and all the beads and the wigs. I mean, everyone just, it was a celebration of something like normality,
Yeah, it really was. I sent a picture to one of my coworkers about the one where I was doing the panel, and he's like, "You're sitting on a sofa with people," and I'm like, "I know, right?
It's real
people.
With the meat."
Yeah.
I really just, that's the first one I've seen, I think, first B-sides photographs I've seen since the pandemic of people actually getting together. It was a joyful thing to see. But you were training as well with Tyrone.
Yes, with Tyrone.
Who does follow me, but I'd still want him on my show. So good words would be great, Prof. But
Tyrone is great. He has such a good story, and he's just a fun person. And I'm sure you saw the picture of him wearing the orange Lilu wig. Which I thought looked pretty well.
He carried it well.
Yes.
But you two, I mean, what were you training in? What was your workshop?
Oh, so it was called Attack and Defend, like the letter N. And basically it was sort of like a SOC analyst prep kind of class. So we just basically covered like sort of the phases of an attack and things that you would see at each, bit of it. So like, what does recon look like? Lots of OSINT kind of stuff. Was thinking about you. and then just diving into little sort of mini CTF things where the participants were answering questions and trying to hack into a virtual range and things like that. It was good fun. Yeah, so Tyrone teaches different trainings, and so a lot of this was his material, but which is a change of pace for me because I'm kind of a control freak, and when I do things like this with other people, usually I'm the one who's like putting it all together and large and in charge.
But you have so many I mean, you're very prolific in the talks and the trainings that you do. I mean, you cover so much. Can we just talk a little bit about sorry, it is allergy season. Can we just talk a little bit about, I know you've said it before, and I've been researching, some of your previous interviews. I know you were on the Cyberwire, but can we just talk a little bit about you getting into the industry? Because I'm gonna obviously let you tell the story in a second, but you're very passionate about bringing people into the industry. And when I heard about how you got into the industry, I kind of wondered whether that was because, in some ways, there was an element of chance in your own journey, and yet now you're right at the top of your game, and you've got all these qualifications and awards and everything. So I always wonder whether that might be a little bit why. So let's talk about you getting into it, and then maybe we can go back to that question. So you didn't sort of study it at first, did you? You went in the cybersecurity world.
Yeah, no, I've been in the field now, if you include the transition time, for about 10 years. And if you heard the Cyberwire thing, it was very much sort of just a chance thing. I had sort of the means and opportunity to explore something new. And then really at the time I was going two different directions. I was looking at getting my PMP, project management certification, or I could do cybersecurity. And project management was definitely something that I knew very well, but I was like, I want to do something different. And so I went the cybersecurity route. And I have to say, the first class I took, I was hooked. I was like, wow, this is awesome.
Because you really, I mean, you study all the time. I mean, you're so inspirational. You can see the amount of qualifications, and like you said before, it's a compulsive now, isn't it? I mean, you love it, which helps, but
Yeah, but I'm a little bit of a collector. So, the thrill of getting a cert like drove me to keep going for other ones, basically. But I think I'm kind of plateauing out on that now.
So you had I listened to the Cyberwire interview, which is the career notes, and we will put a link to it and a screen up here because it's really worth listening. It's not a very long piece, but it's great because you say you actually you were left some money by a relative who passed away, and you'd sort of sorted their estate out, so it gave you time to leave the job that you were in,
Yeah,
and do this course. I mean, that to me, it's kind of like you could have chosen anything. So you must have had something. There must have been something about the tech and the security side that was ringing a bell for you.
yeah, and I think part of it stems from I was doing this sort of leadership type program while I was still in my previous career, and one of the things we did was tour the local community college, which is like a 2-year vocational kind of school, right? And we went to see the cyber labs, and I mean, basically it was just a classroom full of computers, but they had like little switches in every computer, so you could be on different like lands or whatever to do like blue team red team stuff, and they were describing this, and I was just like, oh, that's so cool. And so I think that was my first inkling. But it's kind of funny, Jenny, because like back in the day, the first time I went to college, I originally started out in electrical engineering and got very successfully weeded out of that program. It was just like, it just wasn't my cup of tea. But here I am, quite a few years later, and it's all about bits and bytes and stuff. So it's almost like I feel like I kind of came full circle. I wasn't ready back then for that.
You have the right kind of, I mean, that's a bad way of putting it, I don't mean it like that, but you have a certain way of thinking and a certain way of focusing that means that you're so good at all of this. But was I right when I said that you are known and have always been known? I mean, I can find stuff going back, to nearly 10 years and more of you encouraging people into careers in cyber. And was I right in thinking that you want to facilitate that because it was sort of partly by chance you got into it? Was that a good assumption?
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely a fair assumption. Sometimes I joke around and I say, cybersecurity has been very, very good to me, which is a knockoff of some other quote that I don't even remember, like from a movie or something. But yeah, it's been such a great thing for me to get into this field, and I do feel really like lucky. And my husband is funny because he's like, Marcelle, be more like a man. It's not luck. You worked hard for it.
Not luck. My God. Well, I was about to say, but you said it for me, but like, I don't really believe in luck. I think it really is the harder you work. And this is an American thing. The harder you work, the luckier you get. I mean, come on. I think we all get breaks though, don't we? We all get like a few breaks, and then it's what you make of them, right?
Exactly. That's what I was just going to say. It's what you make of them. So, from the beginning, I was in this kind of career transition mindset, and I took some classes about like sort of branding yourself, and these are all things I hadn't really like thought of before. And so it was kind of an interesting opportunity to look at like sort of what my skills were, and what could I transition into this new career. And originally I was like, oh, maybe I'll do cybersecurity policy, because that was like the only thing I could really wrap my head around, because I didn't know anything about cybersecurity. No. But I can assure you that cybersecurity policy is absolutely not what I want to do. It didn't take me long to find that out. Not that there's anything wrong yet. People need to do policy.
But you've always said, haven't you? You've always said that there are lots of different careers, and you've got to. I mean, I think what I read, or maybe heard you say, you advise people to kind of look into it and then find find a niche within it and
Exactly.
specialize.
Exactly. And I think very much like once somebody called me a jack of all trades in this field, and I was a little bit offended by it. But then I came to realize that it's true. Like I'm good at a lot of different things. I have like my sort of specialty areas, but still I have like a broad base of knowledge on a lot of different topics. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's actually super useful, I think, in this industry to be, well versed in a lot of different topics. Doesn't mean I'm an expert in every single thing I do, but
no, but if you're doing threat intel, you've got to be across,
yeah,
and I'd imagine quite quickly sometimes all the different areas that might come up and to translate that into the different specialists that you have.
Yeah, it's actually great for doing the kind of work that I do in threat intelligence. And like to me, this is just like a dream career because, like I say, I get to work on like anything that looks interesting.
It changes all the time because you said there's shiny things all the time that you can.
The shiny things. That's what I like to say. But going back to what you were asking before, I feel very driven to sort of bring this opportunity to other people because it has been so good for me, and it's fun and it's interesting and I love the community. And I mean, there's great perks. You can make really good money in this industry, which was not what drove me in the first place, but it's certainly a nice, I don't know, side effect. Is that the right word? Actually, one of my original drivers was to work from home. I had a friend who's working in the field and he worked from home most of the time. And I was like, oh, I really want that. Now everybody's sick of it, of course, but
yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? Because now it's going to be. I was actually talking to someone on my talk show, and actually Sarah Armstrong Smith, and what she said was she works for Microsoft, and she's never done anything other than work from home because she joined just before the pandemic. And what she said was, she said in the past we used to have to make a case to work from home. So you have to say, I think I can do my job from home and I can be disciplined. And and now she says, I think the companies are going to have to make the case to bring you back in, which I thought was an excellent point. Are you seeing that as well? Are you seeing that this is going to be the new normal now that in the main people are working from home? How's it going to work over where you are?
Well, for me, I've been working remotely for like the past 3 jobs. So this was same old. The thing that was different was that suddenly I had a husband and a child, not a little child, a grown child, also working at home. That was the big difference. But yeah, I think companies are realizing that there's a lot of benefits to having people work remotely and that people actually do get the work done, which I think is a lot of the hesitation sometimes is a lack of trust that employees are going to do what they're meant to do, which is sad because, you should trust your employees, but
I mean, way to create insider threat, I mean, one of the things I've been saying for the last couple of months is be very careful when everything goes back to hybrids and some are working in the office and some are at home. Be careful not to force people to go in if they don't want to, because you're going to create, disgruntled employees if we start making people go back to something they're frightened of or they doesn't suit them. I think we all suddenly realized we could go for dinner with the family, and I made the birthdays and things. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, SecureWorks has been, I think, very, very cautious about, because we do obviously have people who work in the various offices, and they've been super cautious about it. And I don't think we've actually even reopened any of our spaces yet, but it does seem like it's going to be very flexible in terms of, go to the office if you want to, don't if you don't want to. So that's good. And, I'd like to see companies acting that way, And
it might benefit women. I mean, that was one of the things that I thought maybe it'll benefit women or people with, different abilities. Like, surely that opens up diversity in terms of the role, because if it doesn't have to be a big commute and a 9 to 5, people can work that suits them. I really hope so.
No, I hope so too. I mean, one of the bad things about, well, there's many things about the pandemic that were bad, but not the least of which was that a lot of women dropped out of the workforce because, even if they were able to work from home, they were still also having to homeschool their children basically and take care of everything. So I just saw a figure the other day, something like 2 million women left the workforce last year. And who knows why for every single person, but that's the presumption, is that it was just too much to have to juggle all the things.
I guess every household made decisions, economic, commercial. I suppose they did, but I really hope, because I know that you're a huge advocate for bringing people in, just more people anyway, but diversity and from a threat. I've got so many questions about the threat and tell bit because I find it very exciting. But from the point of view of diversity in terms of threat intelligence and in terms of like defense, generally sort of defensive postures, forgetting all the other reasons why we should have a diverse and inclusive workforce, from a defense point of view, it's really important to have all these different perspectives and backgrounds, isn't it? I mean, I wondered if you could talk a bit about that, because I just think coming from you, it'd be people would be really interested in what that really means.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, I mean, everybody already knows, it's established that diversity on a team is a good thing, right? But I think so I don't even think of myself as being like the only woman in the room that often. Sometimes I do, when I look at like the Zoom meeting that I'm in, and it's like guy, me, guy. But I think in particular, when you pull together people from different backgrounds, and that could be based on your gender or your race or just cultural or whatever, you bring so many different viewpoints to the table, and people have different ways of thinking. So it's just, to me, it's essential. I can't imagine like building a team and having like, little like mini Marcelles be the only thing that is in that team, right?
So I just don't think you can defend as well, because in my experience, which I'm sure is, is different to yours, but perhaps similar in terms of defense, the other side, the attackers have, it's always been very diverse that we've ever uncovered. It's just getting the job done. So like, if they've got lots of different abilities and viewpoints, then we really needed to defend against them, I think.
Yeah, to be sort of on a level playing field, if you will. I think that's part of what you have to look at. So yes, how are we doing as an industry with diversity? I am a bit of a, glass half full person. Actually, I'm very much a glass half full person, but I think that things are slowly improving in terms of diversity. And the thing that I always say is that we need a lot of people in this like battle, whatever you want to call it, right? We need more defenders. We need just more people. So if you exclude like half the population, like say gender wise, then you're not going to have enough people. So it's just like, to me, a very logical thing, right? Like, why wouldn't you embrace anybody, right?
Right. But just because it's logical doesn't mean anyone's taking any notice of it. I've learned that since I've come into this industry.
Yeah,
I'll tell you that. Sure. But you know what? It's always a big dichotomy for me, because I don't know whether it's just that it's louder, but like than other industries. Because obviously, because I work as a consultant, I'm in lots of different industries anyway, a lot of the time. So I see it, but I feel like we are an industry that we do, on the one hand, seem to try very, very hard to be inclusive and diverse. But it's sort of like the effort that goes into it, the result that comes out of it seems to be less than what you'd expect. And I always wonder really why that is, because it just doesn't seem to make sense to me.
I have definitely noticed the same thing. It's a bit mysterious because, and I don't want to call it lip service, because I think people are absolutely, they mean what they say when they support inclusivity. And I think that you do see that so much in the field of cybersecurity, or maybe it's just the people that we follow, but I mean, we follow a lot of people. So I think it's a fairly, reasonable thing to assume that it is an inclusive community. So why is it that, we're still struggling with filling roles with, more of a diverse kind of population?
Yeah, and I think there is some lip service to it, and I think so. It's very helpful sometimes to say that, because no one's going to outright say, or very few people are going to outright say that they're not in support of diversity, but whether they actually do anything about it.
Yeah.
And I think it goes back again to what we were just saying about working from home and everything. I think we can recruit in, but whether we keep people once they get families and other responsibilities, perhaps, it might be senior people to look after, or children, or whatever it is. It's maybe keeping women in the industry,
Yeah.
not just women.
No, it's
Anyone
good.
who isn't of a certain specific type, anyone with any diversity at all.
I mean,
Um,
gender diversity is what I've probably studied the most, and retention is a huge issue. So I find it slightly frustrating when people are like, "Oh, we've got to educate, the young girls," and I was like, "That's a great plan, but we also need to like make sure we're keeping the women that are already here in the field." And I don't know the right answer on how to do all that stuff, but I do have some definite thoughts about it, and one of the things is just changing your culture and your environment, and like job postings, for example. Like I've consulted with a couple of different companies, helping them write their job postings in a way that is not going to be off-putting to
this is so
diverse
true.
candidate.
This is so true. I actually was on a panel,
Yeah.
and I was saying, I made a list, and I said, this is not gender based, but like there's a certain personality that is attracted to things like wargaming, red team, blue team, attack perspective, defense perspective, pen testing, infiltration. I like all that. To me, that's very exciting and everything.
Sexy,
But
people like it.
do you know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh yeah, yeah, oh come on, like, but I think that we need lots of different types of personalities, and I think that kind of language, it's very kind of a macho in a way, and
Yeah.
sort of confrontational, and that surely excludes people who are not macho and confrontational, but are
Right.
more perhaps introverted, thoughtful, not obsessed with fighting.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, and that's an example that I use often. I don't see it so much anymore, but you would see in job postings a lot, like, "Oh, we have Nerf gun battles and we have a foosball table." And I was like, all that makes me want to not work for you.
Beer and pizza. See, I kind of like the
Yeah.
beer and pizza thing, but you see, so
Well, yeah.
I mean, I remember being at a conference, and all the speakers went for a meal, and the round of drinks was 17 pints of beer and a glass of white wine. Guess who the glass of white wine was for? And even I, as kind of confident as I am and outgoing as I am, and used to working with huge gangs of guys all the time, because
Yeah.
even I felt out of place that night,
Yeah.
because it just was just so pronounced. And everything from the fact that, like, even like the table where we were eating dinner, Marcel, was too far away
Yeah.
for me to reach, because I was so much littler than all
Taller
of them,
than
so much
other
shorter.
people.
So I'm like
Yeah.
reaching across me, I was outstretched. And they were all lovely, lovely. All but one was lovely, who everyone would know, but I'm not naming yet. But everyone else was lovely. But you just do feel a bit.
Yeah.
So I'd love it to change, because I think we can only do our job properly if we have lots of different people in this business. So I
And,
always
and
wanted to chat to you about that stuff.
no, I mean, I agree. And what you're describing at that dinner party or whatever,
Speakers dinner
it,
night before. Yeah.
yeah, speaker theater. There's definitely techniques that people use, or tactics, like say if you're in some kind of power thing, like there's different ways. And I'm telling you this, you know this already, but the way somebody sits in a room, and then how they have like the other people sit in the room, it's all like showing who's power. And I'm sure that wasn't intentional in this case, but that's, I think, ultimately what it kind of makes you feel like, because you're like,
I think that's even worse, because I think it's oblique to consciousness. I just don't think
yeah,
anybody did it deliberately. And if I'd have been sitting in a chair and not on the like sort of bench, if you see what I mean,
yeah,
I could have moved my chair, but I wasn't. So it's
yeah,
like everyone else, the whole table's so far away, and I was like on the edge anyway. Um, And you sort of live and learn. But I wanted to talk to you about, because I mean, do you see it? It's got to surely keep on improving from every aspect of diversity. I really hope it does. And I think we're in an industry that is committed to doing it, but we have to try harder.
Well, and one of the things that I've noticed just over the time that I've been in the industry is that people are having kids. And I get a lot of men who have daughters who are like, never really thought about this before, but now I am. And what can I do? And so, it's a bit of an evolution, right? I mean, a generation ago, women were still in comp sci and things like that. And then they all kind of filtered out. And so, hopefully we'll just see maybe another generational change where it is more normal for and normal's not the right word, but well, it is maybe, but for women to get into techie type fields, because there was definitely a long time where that just wasn't happening so much. And for my generation, which I'm gonna say I'm a Gen Xer. So, so for me, like, there was never any thought of doing anything technical. Like, just, it wasn't something that was thought of, encouraged, expected, yeah,
of women, or just of the your background of women.
Yeah, women.
Because where I was from, it was, you just really weren't really expected to do much with your life, really.
Yeah, and that whole thing. Yeah, no, and like, I mean, I always knew I was going to go to college and all that kind of thing, and I ironically always wanted to be a teacher, and
you are.
Now I am, which is awesome, right?
You're an educator in slightly different way.
Yeah. But that's what I wanted to do, and I steered away from that field because so many people were like, "Oh, it's not, you won't make any money," and blah blah blah. And I think that's one thing I've learned too is, you have to trust your own instincts about these things, all things, because people would love to give you advice all day long, right? But it's not necessarily.
I think what I say to people sometimes on that, I so agree with you, is I just say, like, sometimes you don't know for sure what you want, but you do know when you don't want something, when you're uncomfortable and unhappy. Yeah. So sometimes it's best to know, like, what you don't want to do, as opposed to exactly what you want to do,
Right.
So I just was so excited to talk to you about all of that stuff, and I know we could talk to you about it forever. No, I could talk about you for hours and hours, what diversity and everything. But I want to ask you a little bit more about this last sort of year, 18 months in your role, Juan. And 2021, we were all hoping would be a much quieter year.
Yes.
than 2020, given that, all the political upheaval in Europe and in the States and the pandemic and everything. But it's from a cyber point of view. I mean, are we in the era of ransomware now, or extortion? I mean, do you think that's what's going to carry on marking out this year and maybe next year? Or, did you see this coming to the extent and to the breadth that these attacks are having?
So I'm not going to say that I predicted all this for sure, but it definitely was evolving over the past year or so. And I've like, historically, since it came out, been very interested in like the naming and shaming ransomware families, where they and I'm sure you know what this is, but I'll just say it quickly in case people don't. But we all know ransomware. They encrypt all your files, and then you pay a ransom to get the decryptor. But with the naming and shaming, before the files are encrypted, the threat actors will exfiltrate files and then basically hold them hostage. So we also call this double extortion. So even if you've got like perfect backups and everything, and you can totally revert back to your original setup, the fact that you've got files out there that might be sensitive, or have implications with like GDPR or HIPAA or whatever, that changes the playing field completely. So you might still have to pay a ransom. So it wasn't long for different threat groups to kind of jump on this bandwagon. And I think, like, at last count, we're tracking like maybe 30 different ransomware families that are using this tactic. Yeah. And it's been it's been very successful. Like these threat actors are making a crap ton of money, pardon my
just
French,
seen
but
this week with the meat company, I think. I forget
oh
the
yeah,
name. J.
JBS.
Yeah.
I think they paid 11 million, but I mean, and I only have that intel just from open source
Yeah, me
news
too.
sources.
Yeah,
I don't have
on
any
Twitter.
insight. Yeah, but I think the biggest one that I've heard to date was Acer paid $50 million. CNA 40
They may
million.
well have been advised to do. I mean, Colonial got some of the money back.
Yeah.
Got the big comeback, but I mean, what I've been saying a lot on the show is, they may have been advised to do that from a business point of view by insurance people, by lawyers, by their own C-suite. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not plan A, obviously, to
No.
pay potential terrorists and organized crime. But
No, absolutely not. And I mean, and it's a sticky wicket, right? Because we've got now OFAC sanction issues to deal with, and then just the whole thing about when you pay these ransoms, you're supporting the cyber criminal environment. And like the FBI, for example, has always been pretty strong on saying don't pay ransoms. But for me personally, I'm like, it depends, right? And there's a lot of factors at play.
Of course, you don't want to pay ransom. It's the last thing anyone wants to do,
right.
for a million reasons. But what I always say is that you're asking someone with a gun to their head to see the bigger picture,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not going to see the bigger picture. That this could be a business ending event. I mean,
yeah,
you've got to be sympathetic. I think it's kind of pushing towards you mentioned blame. If we're not careful, we'll end up blaming people for being for being caught out by ransomware when this is an organized criminal enterprise. I think it's a very difficult situation.
and it can also happen to any organization. I mean, nobody should be pointing fingers in this field, especially with regard to ransomware. So yeah, I am saddened when I see people do that. Like, oh, they should have had better security or whatever. I'm like, no, it doesn't really matter.
No, it doesn't go that way, does it?
So yeah. But one of the things that we've been chatting about at work is one ransomware family, Babook, said basically like, we're gonna just skip the ransomware part and just do like what we call smash and grab. So they just, not skip the ransomware. Well, yeah, skip the ransomware part. So basically just get into the networks and steal the data and then hold the data for hostage and not fiddle with the whole like encrypting files part of it. So that might be something that we see more of coming down the pike. And I don't know that we've seen it at all yet. Just this one group was sort of saying that they might do that. But I mean, really, it's kind of has the same outcome and is possibly less of a headache, to deal with like decryptors that don't work and, whatever. But the thing that blows my mind, Jenny, is that it's such like almost like a commercial enterprise. This is like, it's like big business in the cybercrime world. And, we're talking like very well organized.
They have HR departments and
basically customer support, and it's kind of mind-blowing, but the money is there to kind of grow the enterprises. So I think that's what we're seeing.
It's gonna happen. And I mean, it's I think the thing that worries me the most and worries a lot of cybersecurity professionals is it's these sort of critical infrastructure attacks and I think we see and are paranoid by nature really how big this could get more than perhaps the public seeing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing that, and lots of things kind of keep me up at night about this field, but one of the things that does give me a little bit of relief is that, this is being done by cyber criminals and their motivation is not to like, poison our water and kill us all, right? It's just to make money. So it's the nation state sponsored actors that are a little more concerning to me, I think, when it comes to infrastructure impact. Because like even like Colonial, I don't think that they had any intent to like cause the kerfuffle that they did.
But they said they didn't. They apologized
Right.
and they said, "Oh, we didn't really mean to cause that much. We just wanted some money," which was
Right,
good of them.
exactly. But you know, and that's something we're seeing too, like in the different forums where this kind of you know, ransomware is like as a service is advertised and that kind of thing. The forums are shutting it down. They're like, no more, because this is getting like too hot for everybody now. Like, you know, the government is in here and probably in the UK as well, is like getting real about it, you know,
saying that they'll have kinetic response.
Yeah,
which I had to be told what was, which was basically that we will bomb you if you do it.
Yeah, basically.
It's like,
oh,
okay.
It to your house. It is not an Amazon delivery.
Oh, and you know, and then Biden sending a letter to everybody. I mean, it's, at least this administration is doing that, though, and acknowledging it's there. I guess. I mean,
Yeah,
that's a good thing.
I think it's encouraging, and I'm glad that Biden is going to bring this up. You know, when he has his talks with.
Yes, he's in the UK at the moment.
Yeah, and he's going to.
We smile in the UK because they've come to part of the UK that's very small and very rural, which is clever from a security point of view. But they've brought the Beast, you know, his presidential car that weighs like 5 tons.
Yeah.
Right, the Beast, and it's like really wide and it withstands bomb blasts and gas attacks and everything else. Quite a bit, which is of course necessary. He's the president, right? But you can't get a Volvo down those roads in Cornwall. And we're all watching, everyone in the UK is watching with it, because we've all been there where you have to reverse 2 miles back up the road to let a tractor past. So we're watching with interest how, you know, the Prez is going to get around Cornwall. It's just going to be, and is he going to have fish and chips and a cream tea? By the time this comes out, we might know that. And if it's true, I'll put some pictures of Biden in Cornwall on here. But it's the G7 right now. But yeah, no, you're right. I mean, it's great that he's bringing it up, and he's, you know, at least cyber seems to be part of the strategy now.
Well, and you know, I kind of joke about it. None of this is funny, of course, but you have to kind of look at the light side. I'm like, the threat actors hit like our gas and our beef, and Americans like their gas and their beef.
They know how to really hate our American cousins, you know.
That will get your people's
and
attention.
You guys go crazy if anyone does anything you don't like. You know, we don't want that to happen. We love you. We love it. So, you know,
oh, sorry.
No, go on.
I was just going to say, you're talking about fish and chips and all that sort of thing. And I'm like, oh my God, I miss England so much. I have not been, obviously. Well, I guess 2019 was the last time I was there. And I cannot wait to be able to come back again.
And you've got to come back soon.
Yeah, no, I want to. Actually, I have a lot of family there, so I haven't seen them for ages, of course.
You need to come up to Liverpool.
I shall. I definitely will.
Yeah, you know, end of September, besides Liverpool. Mm-hmm. So listen, I could touch you all day. I know I could. I mean, you know, especially if you had a bottle of wine.
Oh my gosh.
Go on. For really very long time. But I just want to ask you a couple more just questions. And one thing, just because someone who's got so much experience in sort of threat intel, I always imagine, do you ever send them on those shoes where you can kind of see the whole globe and see all, you know, like that? Have it with
a pew map.
So if you got that you can go in and have a look at things.
I actually don't have like a SecureWorks version of one. Maybe we should have one. I'll have to bring that up in our meeting. I do occasionally put them up on the screen if I'm giving a presentation or something, because people are always like, ooh, that's so
awesome.
Cool.
Looks so
cool.
You
make that. I'm like, no, I didn't make it. I loved the Nord one, and I haven't loved any other one quite as much since then. But
and so many people used to say to me, oh, there's lots of better ones, but that was the one, just because visually, it just made so much sense. But I mean, okay, so you don't have I'm so disappointed you don't have like a giant room with a huge screen that you're watching it all the time. But is it, you know, like, how do you do? Because I know that you don't just watch like the main threat actors, do you? You kind of have to be across everybody. So how does it sort of tip? You know, how do you keep an eye on it? What way do you get those notifications that you can talk? I know you can't talk about everything, but what?
Yeah, no, I mean,
actually, a bit more, because it's a really exciting job.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, so obviously there's a lot of good stuff in OSINT, and different government groups like CISA and FBI will put out, interesting reporting and stuff. But really, where the meat of it comes from is within our visibility into client telemetry, and then we have a very robust incident response practice. So actually seeing engagements unfold that are, say for example, like Hades ransomware has been like the flavor of the month for me lately, because we've had quite a few incidents featuring Hades ransomware.
Why are they all called after ancient Greek and Roman entities?
I know, right?
I noticed that the other day and I was like, this is very cool. And then I went, is there anything that isn't based on mythology?
I know, it's true. I think it's definitely part of the overall effect and tells you a bit about like the people who are dreaming this stuff up.
Maybe it's bringing in people with history majors or classics majors. Getting away from that language you were talking about, Marcelle.
Yeah, there is like Hades, for example, they do these copycat ransom notes, and I'm like, is this like an homage to these other groups that they admire, or I don't know what they think, but it's certainly interesting from sort of like a psychological standpoint. I can see where you would find that intriguing. But yeah, so that kind of insight, like, I mean, within our systems, I can see like alerts on different kinds of activity, things that are hitting like our various countermeasures, and I can drill right down to like a host and look at what's happening on that host. So it's really a great source of information. Same thing with phishing, like we track various phishing emails that clients are getting, and I've produced some threat intel around the phishing, because I look at it and I was like, look at this. This is the same and this is the same, and it's going to all these different clients. What's happening? It's a campaign. Yay.
Do you get down to kind of granular level and see, like, one of the things that I see with social engineers and some of the malicious social engineers that I've kind of chased over the years and are still out there. But was one of the things I see is like people have signatures, so I can sometimes tell from a script or from where we're going. And I know that'd be true of the ransomware groups. Do you get that in the phishing as well? Do you sometimes think there's like a signature, like a little quirk of code that like some codes like that as well, isn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that's how you can sometimes, pick out these campaigns, is because of these like sort of little common techniques or things in the code or whatever. There's been a lot of things I've found, from just pulling one thread from like a couple of maybe phishing email examples, and then, pulling that to like the malicious site, and then looking at the code on the malicious site, and then finding a bunch more of those malicious sites because they're using the same code, So, I mean, this work is very much like being a detective, you're digging into like the clues and trying to figure out the big picture. So
down the rabbit hole.
Yes, precisely.
Almost the first thing Marcelle and I did when we met each other was compare our ink. So
yes.
It's kind of like a private joke, but that's it.
It was kind of funny that we both had sort of that same look. I think we both had it like yours, though. I like how you have your
recently. We've done it. We both had one of them done quite. I can't remember which one. I think
I've gotten about 5 in the past year or so.
Oh my God, it's addictive once you start.
It's a bit like I got my first tattoo probably like 20 years ago, and it's a lotus blossom tramp stamp, as you do, and
you just go, it's ironic.
But then I don't know. I got kind of like bitten by the tattoo bug, and yeah,
I love that that down the rabbit hole tattoo is so great, and it's so you though, because that's the job, and
it is. It is.
So listen, I'm gonna wrap it up. But I just wanted some advice from you. Really, I guess sometimes people are in the industry, and for all how great the industry is and the journey that it's given you and me and lots of us, that sometimes people are feeling jaded. Would you have anything to say to people who kind of go, all the drama and the politics and everything that goes with the industry makes people sometimes want to get out? Would you have words of encouragement to stay back in? What would you say to people who've been in a while and maybe are starting to feel a bit tired of it?
So definitely stay. unless you don't want to, then go. But no, what I would say is, if you're feeling a little jaded, you're losing enthusiasm, that's a good time to reach out and mentor somebody new in the field, because their enthusiasm will hopefully infect you as well, and it will give you hope for the future, perhaps. But that would be my go-to.
That's just brilliant advice. I didn't know that you're going to say that, and that's just great. And also, what about? And I know you've probably been asked this a million times, but if someone's just come into the industry, let's assume that they've got in and they're at some entry level position, and it seems so broad. I know we've spoken about find something to specialize in. Is that the main thing that you tell them to do? Find what you love and stay, and sort of really go deep there? Or...
Yeah, what I typically say is that find something that you're really good at. It doesn't matter what it is, and this applies a lot. Like I say this with regard to cyber competitions, right? People are often intimidated about doing a cyber competition because they feel like, oh, I don't know anything, blah blah blah. But get one thing that you're good at and you're comfortable with, and even if it's just like decoding base 64, whatever, something that is kind of like your little niche area, and then you can grow your other skills. But it's nice to feel confident about at least one thing, right? You're like, I know this, I've got this. It doesn't have to be a huge thing. And then also, I always refer people to the cybersecurity workforce framework that is originally created by NIST and now promulgated by NICE. But anyway, it's a great framework to explore the different career paths in this field, because not everybody's going to be a pen tester. We need a lot of blue team people, and boy and howdy do we need a lot of blue team people, the defenders. And but there's other things. There's forensics and policy, and there's many different paths, and there's something for everybody. And even if you're cyber adjacent, say you're maybe working HR, you're still reaping the benefit of being in a very robust industry with good salaries and good perks and things like that. So you don't even have to necessarily be doing cyber, because we're not all doing the cybers. There's lots of support type things involved as well.
Well, I think that's brilliant advice, and I just am so delighted that you came on my show. Ever since I met you in Atlanta, I was always like, it just kept like one eye, and sort of was trying to say, I've got to get Marcelle on the show, because you're just so inspirational and you speak such good sense and you have great ink. So thank you.
Well, you have great ink too, and I think you're inspirational.
Oh, well, that's lovely. But I really want to say thank you for coming on the show and sharing that with us, Marcelle. I'd love to have you back on sometime on a panel we do tinfoil hat, where we go down all the rabbit hole of conspiracies in the industry. Ooh. and have a bit of a lighthearted look at some of the stories. So we'd love to have you back on for that. But for now, thank you so much for being on the Human Factor Security Podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. To be honest, Tyrone's it. Oh, bless you. Allergy season.
Sorry, I don't know where that came from. We'll cover that up. Edit.